the live stream, just feel free to zip right into my actual profile. We'll definitely be streaming from there. We also have a YouTube. So if for some reason there's a technical glitch and you're not able to see me inside the live stream, still having some technical difficulties there, but we are getting it worked out. So head over to my personal LinkedIn and you'll be able to see the live stream there. I'm so excited to have you here. We're going to be talking all about MDF today. If you joined today and you're like, I'm joining because I want to understand MDF better, I want to really master MDF, this is a great opportunity to do that, and you'll be able to do that after this session. So really excited to have you here. Again, you can head over to our YouTube. You can head over to my personal profile. It should be on there. If you're having any issues, Miriam's also on my team going to drop the registration for this, so you can just stream right here in my app, Riverside. That's the most surefire way to get you in the live event today. So excited that you're here. We are about to start rolling. We've got a lot of content to cover off on today, and so I want to make sure that you get what you came here for, that whatever you showed up for today, that you maximize your 1 hour that you're here. Will probably be about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then from there we'll actually, good, we are live streaming. Great, I think we are live streaming here, that's good. All right, so I'm going to start with a couple of slides. If you are here today and you are a note taker, make sure that you take notes. I am going to give you at the end of this a step-by-step document that really you can take and send to your marketing team or straight internally start to execute on. MDF is the biggest, most underutilized source of marketing funds in our business, so I want to make sure that everyone has the guide, the how-to guide, even if you didn't come today. So let's get started. Let's start to put your MDF to work. I'm actually going to share my screen over here and grab, sorry, I'm a little, again, technologically challenged. Hang on one second, I'm gonna grab I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Let's see, pull it over here. All right. Get your notepad out, get your pen and paper. We're about to get rolling. All right. Sorry, guys. Got two screens and two hands going lots of different places. There we go. All right, got it up. Let's present, and I'm going to grab. All right, here we go. Let's put your MDF to work. I'm going to share a different layout so you will be able to see my face while we look at slides. Okay. All right, guys, so we're going to cover off on a lot today. Like I said, we are going to be talking about a topic that, oftentimes we ignore. It's too much trouble. It's a lot of work. I understand. Trust me, I actually, having worked internally for a managed services provider business for almost 9 years, when I was hired, the CEO of the company that I worked for actually, I think we'll be able to see me better this way. There we go. He actually said, whenever I asked him what the marketing budget was, and this will probably resonate with some of you, but he said, "You're my budget. You're it." So I was the budget. I had to figure out how to extend and exceed our goals simply with MDF funds. And so I would say I'm probably someone who has been both in the trenches with MDF, but also have brought this into my agency so that my team actually, as we serve people in this, the channel and this community that we are in, that we actually are able to serve them with a knowledge of MDF. So I talk about it a lot. I have talked a lot, particularly about AT&T MDF, because we are an AT&T solution provider, so that a solution provider partner. So we're able to actually serve our solution providers with, hey, here's a strategic way to use your MDF in the right way. So that's one big thing that we do, but we know that there's more MDF than just that out there, right? So that's one of the big one of the big things that I think a lot of times we just don't think about in this industry is, hey, there's money sitting there and how we're using. So we're going to talk about just globally, 60% of MDF goes unused every year. The statistic is a little bit smaller for our space, but also it just depends on how we're utilizing it and what that statistic is for your business, not really globally. We want to make sure that you want exactly what you're doing with your MDF and have a strategy behind it. So if this session today, this conversation that we're having, if this is interesting to you, or it's something that you've benefit from or enjoy, first of all, you will get the recording. You can go to our YouTube and get access to this as well. But we've got a lot of resources on YouTube. Actually, recently, the whole reason that I picked this topic was that Paul Green recently had me on his podcast. He's going to be podcasting with me in a couple of days, but he brought this up, and this was our whole conversation, was MDF. So you can head over to Find the Business Growers on YouTube if you're interested in the conversation that we have today, and you'll be able to access this with the resource document as well. Okay, ground rules for today. You showed up today, you're here. We have a room full of folks. We want to make sure that you're here, you're present, you're putting your student caps on, you're here to learn something today. This is going to be something that you can take and really amplify your results in marketing with what we learned today. One of the biggest issues that we have when it comes to MDF, that there's no strategy behind it. And so the goal today is that you leave after you've given this 100% focus, and that you show up today, you put your student cap on. Hey, maybe you do know a lot about MDF and you showed up anyway. And we're going to be talking about how you can maximize that, how you can start to build a system and a strategy around that, because that's actually what's going to get your MDF to 100% utilization, is if you actually have a plan for it and a strategy for it. So here's what we're going to cover today. One, if you're new and you don't know much about MDF and you're just like, hey, I want to learn about what it is, we're going to talk about that. We're just going to start at the very basic. We might have a 2.0 version of this if we have enough interest, but then we're going to talk about what you even have right now. If you don't know, we're going to talk about how to find out what MDF you have available to you. Then we're going to spend some time talking about strategic use of your MDF. Just spending money is not the same as actually getting a return on it, and all of those vendor partners want to see the return on it before they give you more, which is part of the catch, right? Also, the structure, just how to manage it internally. Who does this? Who has time for this? How are we going to get a system around it? And then here's what to do based on what's covered. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. No, not all MDF programs are created equal. And so we're going to talk about how to make sure you're maximizing the MDF that you have, not just all vendor MDF that you may or may not have. So just to start, some people call it marketing development funds, market development funds. If you are starting from scratch, MDF, this is vendor dollars, their actual money that they set aside to fund your marketing of their products. So it's a separate money, earned by selling volume. Obviously, you cannot earn MDF if you're not selling their product, but it's going to be accrued mostly by hitting certain thresholds, sales thresholds. These vendors want you motivated to sell their products. They are not dumb. They are aware that you might have one or two, spots in your tech stack reserved for their same or similar product, their competitors. If you're smart at what you do, you're constantly analyzing who the best vendor is for you for that particular product, or maybe you're selling a couple of other things based on the customer, what they want. So your vendors are aware that it's competitive, and they want to make sure that they are giving you a reason and motivation to sell their product over others, which is where the MDF concept was born. But here's just kind of at a high level, the difference between MDF programs. And this is kind of, your responsibility, or someone on your team's responsibility to find out, okay, which funds that we're doing or using, or which vendors that we have, which ones of those are accrual based and build up consistently with sales volume. Then you've got some vendor funds that are actually not automatically accrued. You have to apply for them, and then you get granted discretionary funds if that vendor team reviews the request and deems your activity appropriate. And most of the discretionary ones just don't even go used at all, because it's it might just be like, I don't even know what we spend it for, and there's that blocker of what we'd spend it for, and then it's never even submitted. And then there's a hybrid model where some vendors might have a combination of, hey, you're going to get this much, but then if you have more that you want to spend or more that you want to do, feel free to utilize our portal or whatever to get those funds approved. So you've got a couple of different types of funds that you can have access to. And here's what Paul Green and I talked about on my podcast with him a few weeks ago, is that some of them are a great use of your time and some of them are not. And so that's what we want to really identify here is the difference between a good program and then what's a waste of your time. So how you identify a good program, and just so you know, you can take all of your program brochures, because every single vendor should have a download that they've given you that says here's all about our MDF. Go in there and use all of those PDFs and assess them in a tool like Claude or ChatGPT to ask, okay, here are the benchmarks for what I consider a good program. Which one of these are worth my time? If it's got a predictable deposits, tiered structure with deposits, you want that. You want a very clear list of eligible activities. If it's cloudy or not real sure, then that gives them the opportunity to catch things or try to kind of make it a little bit more difficult for you. Something in terms of proof of performance, you just want to make sure it's reasonable. If they're asking for the moon in terms of performance, then sometimes it's because, again, they want to give you a reason to, or they want themselves to have a reason to maybe deny it if they don't like it. So you want to make sure that it's a very clear, reasonable proof of performance. They have a dedicated support contact. This can be the most frustrating for you as the owner, the founder, the marketing team. I understand, trust me, is that if I don't have anybody I can get in touch with, then it's going to not really surface to the top in terms of priority. And I understand that. You also want funds that are deposited on a predictable schedule. This is something that we get a lot of heartburn about is, hey, you're going to pay me back, but at what time, at what, because we know that we need the money and we need to make sure that these deposits are coming in regularly. And then you want to look at those logo requirements and just make sure that they are not totally hijacking your brand, because we do want to build our own brand equity, of course. And then what's a waste of your time? It's, really vague eligibility requirements, a lot of approval requirements with no surefire timeline of when you're going to get your money back, any sort of retroactive rule changes or frequent rule changes, reimbursement that takes over 90 days, and then anything that's going to require a vendor logo to be larger than your own, then that just dilutes your brand, so we don't want that. And then no dedicated contact. If you only have a portal to go through without somebody that can bubble up for questions, and that makes it a lot more difficult and time consuming for you. So that's a good program versus maybe a not great program. So we're going to move into some that are worth knowing about. There's a lot of others. I actually just had a great call with Ruckus yesterday. Of course, AWS I know has vendor funds. I'm just sending a couple of some that we know. You might have some connectivity partners. Again, I'm an approved AT&T ecosystem provider for these solution providers that are reselling AT&T. So that's a good one. There are lots, and you need to make sure that you're evaluating your tech stack to find out. But the first thing we want to ask is, do you even know your MDF balance in any of your, do you know if they have MDF? That's what we're going to find out today is, hey, before we even talk about what's strategic, do I even have MDF? What are my vendors offering? Do a scrub, ask questions. And we're going to actually, in my playbook that I'm going to be giving you at the end of this, you're going to be able to very easily detect what to say. You're going to actually have a script that you can send all your vendors to find out what MDF is available to you. So make sure you it's even worth your time to sit on this training today. Here's some questions that you're going to need to answer this week. Send this to your team. Make sure that this recording gets in the hands of the right person, because we need to know what vendors have an active partner agreement right now. Who are we actively partners with versus just selling their products? Number two is, which of these actually have an MDF program? If you don't know, ask, what's my current balance or accrual in these programs? If you know you're already selling a lot of something, that's the one you want to ask first, of course. When does my current cycle expire? And then what have I spent in the last 12 months and on what? If you're here today because you don't know if you've even used MDF, then you might know the answers to some of these. But these are the things you've got to evaluate first and foremost before you can get a strategy around it. And then this is specifically for MSPs, but we know if you're in the channel in any regard, no matter what you are, that funds also apply here. So what are folks looking, what are they, when you start looking, what are you going to find? You're going to find these three things. I can guarantee you're either, you have money that's unclaimed that you've never touched or that expired. You didn't use it, or it was just misused. Maybe there was no strategy. You already know this. That's why you're here today. Hey, I never really used MDF appropriately. I don't even know, or I didn't get it approved the second time because I spent the money without a strategy or documentation, and my partner won't give me any more funds. A lot of us are guilty of that. So we want to make sure that we are being wise and using them well so we can get more of them, right? And just remember, spending MDF is not the same as using MDF. If you are just spending for one-off events and you don't have a follow-up, or you don't have ROI tied to it, or you're doing a lot of vendor-heavy materials that have big logos for them and don't focus on your product and your differentiator, or if you have campaigns and you're not doing attribution with your campaigns, that's spending. If you're like, well, we use the funds for a party, we don't really know what to show for it. This is the kind of stuff that your vendors are going to catch on to and not approve after you do it a couple of times. But if you're actually building campaigns that are tied to pipeline growth, if you are doing activities that compound over time and you're able to prove it, if you are creating content that keeps working, it's evergreen content. After the quarter ends, it can still work for you. If you're, driving a result that brings your vendor information every quarter about how you're able to touch your prospects more and get their product in front of your prospects more, then they're going to certainly continue to improve it. So if you're just spending, then that's a waste of their time, to be honest. And just in defense of these vendors, they want you, their whole purpose is for you to sell more of their products. And if you're trying to get around that or do a workaround, then that's not a good quality use of their funds. We don't want to do that. Here's what they want to see. Trust me, I know enough of them. Talked to one yesterday. What did you run? When did you do it? What channel was it on? And a lot of times they want to know this in advance so that they can approve it. Then, how many people did you reach, whether it was registrants, attendees, impressions, list size, followers, and then what came of it? This is not a big ask. And if you feel like you're fumbling around because you don't have this information, then that's not a great use of the funds. You need to make sure you've got activity, reach, and results dialed in before you even ask for the money. So we want to make sure that we are creating good partnerships with these vendors, that we are using our funds wisely. And the best way to do that is to make sure that we're giving them activity, reach, and results every single time we're utilizing their money. So this is unpopular opinion, but having been someone inside of an MSP that utilized MDF funds and made it my job to figure this out, you don't want a partner who wants to drive the ship in terms of their brand. So this is kind of a version A versus version B. You don't want the partner logo to be primary and your logo to be secondary. That does not a brand build. And so we're in the business of building your brand, not their brand. And yes, we do want to show that our expertise is powered by big brands. But if your vendor partners are asking you to prioritize their logo over yours, then that's a red flag that I would certainly recommend having a conversation about. This is what makes it not worth your time, because if we're trying to build your brand and your location for your customers, this creates brand confusion, which is a big no-no. So there is a tactful way to do it. The good partners are going to know that and understand that a small, subtle logo or a powered by type comment. I know our AT&T friends, they just require this powered by in their badge. So those partners are going to equip you and know that they want your brand to lead and they want to be the powered by brand, at the bottom or next to, versus making their brand the big priority. And so this is we're going to move into just structure. So we know big red flag. We know what to look for in terms of good program versus waste of your time. Now we're going to talk about the structuring internally, because this is where we get tired. This is where we get exhausted. This is where we give up on MDF. And I want to have my clients and those that are in my industry that I'm talking to, I want them excited about MDF because it is an underutilized resource. But in order to do it correctly, you've got to have a strategy. Otherwise, it will not work. So quarterly, you need a plan, you need to execute, you need to document, and then submit. Again, some of them do require a pre-approval or submitting in advance. And then who owns what? This was really big at the MSP that I worked for. It was, you just need an owner. And I think this is where you've got your product team that owns the product. That's not the same as owning MDF. And so make sure that there's someone that's really clearly owning the vendor relationship versus the balance and the activities. That's a different job if you have the bandwidth and different people in your business to do it. Just depends on how big you are. But there definitely is going to be, the importance of all of your, your vendor programs, the submission deadlines, the proof of performance, documentation, communicating these results back to your vendor rep. This is a job. This is a job for your marketing sales owner, pre-approval if you have a marketing assistant, somebody who can make sure that this is something that we help support with documentation for our clients. But you've got to have somebody who's really owning all of the deadlines, the submission information, what needs to be submitted. We love to put it in a process where you're just able to dump it somewhere in one folder so that you have everything you need. And then you need support. You need the support of your leadership who says, hey, yeah, we approve this as an execution plan. You need this outreach of your vendor reps, somebody who is the point of contact with that vendor rep to make sure that we understand any changes to the program. And then you really need a marketing person or marketing agency who is executing the campaigns. And then you need somebody who's going to understand all the deadlines and things like that. So it really is a job, and it's a job that a lot of us really don't have anybody assigned to, which is why it gets missed. So I want to make sure that y'all understand exactly what you've got to have on your team. And then 5 things that kill your reimbursement request. And this may also be a reason why you gave up on MDF in the past. But if your reimbursement requests keep getting denied, then you're not going to reapply. And then you lose, faith in your MDF. But you've got to do your work. I mean, these vendors are giving you free money. They're not going to make it a cakewalk. You've got to have all of your documentation dialed in. You've got to have, a clear idea of what's approved and what's not, which most of them will tell you. Again, if it's vague, then you need to ask specific questions before you do the activity. Anytime you miss a deadline, they are giving you a runway. If you cannot get your act together and get it in before deadline, then that's on you, not them. The co-branding requirements, again, making sure that those are met on materials, and then there's no pre-approval when a pre-approval was required. Smart vendors will require this pre-approval because you don't want to get all the way through the process and say, hey, I thought I had $10,000 to spend, and they say, oh, well, you didn't use the logo right, and that event was last week, so we can't give you the money. Don't want that. Pre-approval is smart. It allows you to make sure that you have alignment with that vendor on what needs to go in the final claim. And then this is not for everyone. I know, and my vendors might get me on this because I know that not every vendor approves the same thing, but I can guarantee you that every vendor will be happy if you show them ROI on what you did, who was there, what actually happened, how many people saw it. So these are just kind of some categories that, for the most part, our vendor partners will cover. There are a couple that you might not know about, so I want to walk through each one. We are in a new world. We are in a new world where B2B content is a big driver in deals. And it's not always a fast driver because we have to, I just spoke on this last week at Channel Partners, we have to be very strategic in how we're creating content, and we need to be doing it based on where our buyer is. And with long sales cycles, our buyer sometimes is totally unaware, or sometimes they're ready to buy. So content, copy, case studies, video content, SEO optimization, some of these things they can be covered because you can actually put really defined metrics around this. So this is just a great summary of, I'm not going to go into significant detail, but you got to know what good looks like. It has to be tied to the vendor's product. It has to be written for your buyer. It has to be published on your website and optimized so that you have buyer questions, what they might be looking for if they're interested in that product. really doing a dialed in, kind of really structured way for content creation. And again, I mentioned videos, webinars, some of that. We'll talk about webinars in more depth in a minute, but all of this content creation today is something you can absolutely measure. And so we want to make sure that we're doing it well so that we can measure more than 2 or 3 visits, right? Or 2 or 3 clicks. So making sure that you have a really well structured SEO strategy and that you are building their products and services, because they actually might pick up more search volume in your area than your brand would if they're a big vendor, right? So you want to be able to show them your, Google Analytics, traffic reports, these published URLs, and any screenshots of showing the co-branding. Great opportunity to get some content. It is the way, if those of you who are not producing educational and client-focused case study type content, it is certainly a huge driver today in today's 13 to 17 to even 20 touches that your buyer needs to see before they even have a conversation with you. So and then, you want to watch out for any vendor, that might require every piece to lead with their name. Then again, we go back to that same issue about the logo earlier. So making sure that the product is the context, not the headline in your copy, or you wouldn't want to do this. Most programs will cover social media content, but again, that co-branding is important. You can show them in advance a 30-day calendar that shows the multiple posts, making sure that co-branding lives in the footer or wherever the most appropriate place is. And you'll see what to watch out for and what the requirements are here. But for the most part, social media, organic social media will get approved every time. Big one. We like to do physical in-person events, but we don't think about virtual events, webinars, live trainings. Get with your vendor partner and host a webinar and train on the product or use cases. Better yet, get a customer talking about it. Get one of your customers talking about a great use case and tell the story. And oh, and by the way, if your partner's logo is on there, or if they want to be on there, then even better. That registration, attendance report, promotional emails, all of those things can be included in that required documentation. And so, but any webinar without a follow-up plan, without a drip sequence afterwards, without nurturing that, is not going to really make your vendor excited. So make sure that you've got a good plan for that. Digital ads. This is where we all want to be. The challenge here is that if we don't have a good website and we're driving traffic back to a website that's not going to convert, or we're pushing product only and not outcome of the product, then your digital ads are not going to perform as well as you'd hope. So make sure that you are being very strategic about your ads, what the outcome is. Take that same webinar or training that you did with that customer that talked about his use case for the product or her use case for the product, and then put that person in a digital ad campaign with a case study so that whenever the person is clicking on the ad, they're going to convert instead of taking them back to something that's not going to convert. But this 100% is really easy to grab data on impressions, click data, any screenshots of the live designs, things like that are really easy to get approved. Typically, email marketing, 100%. Your email sequences, your content on the email sequences, the co-branding, then if it's newsletter style or just regular plain text style, these are very useful. And you certainly, if you have campaigns that you want to promote these products on, upsells, add-ons, things like that, email campaigns are going to get approved most of the time. We love the in-person events and trade shows. We pretty much know how to get these approved, but the issue is when we're doing big events and we're asking for money all the time and we don't have a document that shows who is there, we don't have photos, we don't have the branding right, then this is not going to get approved. So if you are doing this, and most people that I talk to are exclusively using MDF for this, the issue is that if you keep using MDF for trade shows and you don't have that lead list, that proof, that branding right, then they're going to catch on. So make sure that you are treating every event like a campaign, tying it to ROI, not just scanning a badge and then forgetting about it. Some programs do direct mail and print. We all love collateral. I personally believe the day of collateral is gone. We need to have a much more interactive conversation with our clients and not just throwing them a brochure. So that's a different strategic discussion. But any printed collateral, if you've got to have it, direct mail to your prospects. Again, let's not just send them a direct mail of a picture of a phone, okay, or a picture of a server, or a picture of any sort of device or router or whatever. Like, let's be smart about our buyer, understand our ideal customer enough to send them an outcome that this product can produce for them with a testimonial, with a quote, with a case study. Don't just build a direct mail campaign around, a vendor product. Make sure you're building it around an outcome. Sales enablement materials. This is huge. Any proposal templates, one pagers, co-branded pitch decks, these types of things, some programs will use, and it is underutilized. So if you need materials to get your sales team out, or if you need landing pages to get your sales team out and about, a lot of times, this is a huge way to tie direct sales to their MDF dollars, especially if it's product focused or outcome focused for that product. So sales enablement materials, we forget about these sometimes, making sure that you have all the sales materials that you need. If you can throw a logo on it, then that can serve you really well. Okay, folks, that was a lot of information. I am going to give you a guidebook for this information. I'm open to questions if you want to go ahead. If you do have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I think I've left we've got plenty of time. Okay, we're only halfway through the hour, so that's good. We have plenty of time if you want to talk, but this is what we need you to do today. You need to email that account manager. I have templates in my document I'm about to give you. Ask for your balance, that eligible activity list, complete this audit worksheet that I'm going to give you before this Friday. So you got a couple days, and then pick 2 activities that are going to match where your business is right now. We don't have to conquer all MDF. We just want to make sure we get something moving. And then go ahead right now. I'm going to take a second and ask you to block 30 minutes this week to look through the guidebook that I'm about to give you. Here's the playbook guidebook to scan right now, download it, and get to work. 30 minutes. I'm telling you, I give you the email to send to your vendor partner. I'm making it so simple, so easy for you. This will not take you long. It's not a 50-page guidebook. It's just a couple of pages, but it gives you a way to assess, audit, strategize, and then start outreach to those partners right now. I'm gonna give you guys a second to scan this. I know I got some folks on live. And then I have just started offering our growth gap assessment. I'm very excited about launch this at channel partners. Everyone's like, what is the thing that's keeping me from growth? So if you are interested in your free growth gap assessment, you can scan right here to get that. The playbook was the QR code on the last page. This is actually an opportunity to meet with me and get your growth gap assessment. And I will tell you, here's the one thing you got to get done to make sure that you can grow the right way. Also, look me up on LinkedIn anytime. For those of you who are watching this on LinkedIn, obviously that won't be hard to do, but I'm so glad that you took the time to join today. Don't forget to head over to YouTube and make sure that you've subscribed, because we've got a really good training coming up in May. It's going to be May 19th, and it's going to be the great debate. Me and a sales leader / now CEO of an MSP talking about the sales and marketing battle. Sales and marketing, they're always battling out whose responsibility is what. I'm really excited. I'm about to launch all of the information about that. So if you want to know whose job is marketing and whose job is sales and where do they intertwine, I'm going to be talking about that live next month in May. So that's going to be something you really want to pay attention to. I don't see any questions in the chat. There may be some questions on LinkedIn Live, which I'll make sure that I answer. I can't toggle right now, but I'll make sure that if there are any questions that I get them answered. Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want that growth gap assessment, it's just a one page that gives you your one thing you need to focus on right now. And then if you want, I'll toggle back here, the guidebook or playbook for getting this MDF strategy off the ground. Then here's the download for that. I'm so glad that you joined me today. This was really fun. I love talking about all things growth for MSPs. And I'm happy to have a conversation anytime if you want to know where you're stuck. That's what I'm here for. Thank you for joining. Again, I'm Laura Johns, founder and CEO of the Business Growers, and we will see you next time.